At 79, Diane Keaton is finally opening up about something surprising from her time working with Al Pacino. It's a story that few people know, something that changed everything for them both, but has stayed under the radar for decades. What is the truth? Diane Keaton is ready to reveal now. Join us as we dive into the untold story behind their iconic relationship. Origins of an icon. Al Pacino is one of the most powerful actors in film history, but his journey to fame wasn't easy. He didn't come from a glamorous background. In fact, he had a tough childhood that shaped the person and performer he would become. Alfredo James Pacino was born on April 25, 1940, in East Harlem, New York City. When he was still a child, his parents divorced. His father moved to California, and Pacino stayed with his mother, Rose, and his grandparents in the Bronx. They didn't have much money, and life was difficult. But despite the struggles, Pacino found comfort in movies. He would often go to the theater and dream of being an actor someday. As a kid, Pacino had problems fitting in at school. He wasn't interested in traditional subjects and didn't get good grades. He dropped out of high school at the age of 17. Teachers saw him as distracted and undisciplined, but he wasn't lazy. He just cared deeply about acting. From a young age, he knew he wanted to perform. He would mimic characters, perform in small plays, and use drama as a way to express himself. Acting wasn't just a hobby for him, it was a way out. He took small acting jobs, worked as a janitor and messenger, and even slept on the streets for a short time to survive. But he kept pursuing his dream. His early years were full of rejection and hardship, but Pacino never gave up. Pacino's life changed when he was accepted into the Actors Studio, a famous acting school in New York. It was here that he studied under Lee Strasberg, a major figure in American theater. Strasberg was known for teaching method acting, a technique where actors draw from their own emotions and memories to bring characters to life. This approach had a huge influence on Pacino. It taught him how to act with deep feeling, intensity, and truth. Pacino worked hard at the Actors Studio and stood out for his focus and commitment. He wasn't trying to be charming or good-looking, he just wanted to be real. This seriousness paid off when he started to get noticed in the New York theater world. He performed in several stage productions and won an Obie Award for his role in The Indian Wants the Bronx. That award helped him get more attention. His first major film role came in 1971 when he starred in The Panic in Needle Park. He played a heroin addict living on the streets of New York City. The role was raw and emotional. His performance was so believable that it caught the attention of director Francis Ford Coppola, who was working on a film adaptation of Mario Puzo's novel, The Godfather. Casting Pacino as Michael Corleone in The Godfather wasn't easy. The studio wanted a bigger name, but Coppola believed in Pacino, even when others didn't. He saw something special in him, something intense, quiet, and unpredictable. At first, Pacino's performance made the producers nervous, but by the end of the film, it was clear that his portrayal of Michael Corleone was unforgettable. Pacino brought a calm but terrifying energy to the character. Michael starts the movie as a quiet outsider and slowly becomes a cold, powerful crime boss. It was a tough role, but Pacino made it look effortless. He didn't overact. He held back. He made small moments feel huge. When the film came out in 1972, it was a massive success, and Pacino's career changed overnight. Even though he became famous, Pacino didn't enjoy being in the spotlight. He didn't like giving interviews or going to Hollywood parties. He preferred to stay quiet and private. Fame made him uncomfortable. He once said that it felt like a prison. But on screen, he was something else. He brought a level of intensity and honesty that few actors could match. He poured himself completely into every role. He was known for his dedication, sometimes to the point of exhaustion. Directors and actors who worked with him often said he was obsessed with getting everything just right. That obsession paid off. Over the next few years, he starred in powerful films like Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, and Justice for All. By the mid-1970s, Pacino wasn't just a great actor, he was a cultural force. He had helped shape a new kind of movie star, real, flawed, and deeply human. Diane Keaton and The Godfather. When The Godfather began filming in the early 1970s, no one could have predicted that one of the most important relationships in Al Pacino's life would start on that set. Diane Keaton and Al Pacino were complete opposites in many ways, but something about their connection worked, both on and off the screen. Their relationship became as fascinating as the films they made together. Diane Keaton met Al Pacino in 1971 during the casting and early shooting of The Godfather. At the time, she was still building her career and had recently appeared in a few films and stage plays. She was cast as Kay Adams, the girlfriend of Michael Corleone, Pacino's character. Keaton was instantly drawn to Pacino. In interviews, she said that she thought he was incredibly mysterious and completely unlike anyone she had ever met. He was quiet, serious, and deeply focused. She described falling for him almost immediately, saying she was madly in love with him from the moment we met. Keaton, on the other hand, was very different. She was quirky, funny, lighthearted, and expressive. She had a unique fashion sense and a tendency to say whatever was on her mind. Pacino was more reserved, often staying quiet during rehearsals and even between takes. But maybe it was these differences that created such a strong connection. She brought warmth and energy. He brought depth and intensity. The chemistry between Keaton and Pacino was obvious on screen. As Kay and Michael, they played out one of the most tragic love stories in film history. Kay was the innocent outsider who believed in Michael's good heart. Michael, over time, became more secretive and dangerous. Watching their scenes together, you can feel the emotional tension building, even in the quiet moments. It wasn't just acting, it felt personal. That connection wasn't limited to the screen. Behind the scenes, their romance developed slowly and quietly. They weren't flashy about it. They didn't appear together in the tabloids or talk much about their relationship at the time. But everyone on set could feel something was happening between them. They shared a deep respect for each other as artists, and that helped their bond grow. Keaton's sense of humor often clashed with Pacino's serious nature, but that's what made their relationship special. She once joked that Pacino was always lost in thought and barely reacted when she tried to make him laugh. "He was just so serious," she said, "but I loved that about him." He, in turn, admired her free spirit and natural charm. She could break through his walls when few others could. Their professional connection didn't end with the first Godfather movie. In 1974, they reunited for The Godfather Part 2, widely considered one of the best sequels ever made. By that time, their relationship had grown more intense. In the film, their characters also go through more emotional turmoil. Michael becomes colder, and Kay starts to pull away. The scene where Kay tells Michael she had an abortion is one of the most powerful in the entire trilogy, and both actors gave unforgettable performances. By this time, Al Pacino had become a huge star. After The Godfather, he went on to do Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, and Justice for All. He was seen as one of the greatest actors of his generation, but the fame also made him more private and withdrawn. He didn't enjoy the attention and often stayed away from Hollywood events. Meanwhile, Diane Keaton was also on the rise. In 1977, she starred in Annie Hall, directed by Woody Allen. The film was a major success, and she won an Academy Award for Best Actress. Her role as the charming and slightly awkward Annie Hall became iconic. Keaton became known for her unique personality, her distinct style, and her ability to mix comedy with real emotional depth. A love that couldn't survive. Diane Keaton always made it clear that she believed in love, family, and commitment. As their relationship grew more serious, she began to think about the future. Keaton wanted to get married and settle down. She wasn't just looking for romance, she wanted something solid and lasting. After years of being with Pacino, she hoped he would be ready to take that step. But Al Pacino wasn't. He cared deeply for Keaton, but he struggled with the idea of marriage. His life had been shaped by instability, especially in his early years. He had seen how relationships could fall apart, and he didn't fully trust the idea of settling down. Pacino was also completely focused on his career. Acting was everything to him. He was intense, always chasing the next role, the next challenge. Personal life often came second. Keaton reached a breaking point. She gave him an ultimatum: marry her, or they would have to part ways. It wasn't done out of anger. It came from a place of love and frustration. She had been patient for a long time, but she needed clarity. She needed to know if they had a future. Pacino, as much as he cared for her, didn't respond the way she hoped. He said he wasn't ready. So Keaton walked away. The end of their relationship wasn't dramatic or messy. It was quiet and painful. Keaton later spoke openly about how hard it was to let go. She said she had loved Pacino wildly, and that walking away was one of the hardest things she had ever done. In interviews, she admitted that it broke her heart. She had believed in them, and even after it was over, she still thought about him. For Pacino, the breakup left a lasting mark too. In rare comments about their relationship, he said, "It just never happened. I didn't feel ready." He didn't speak about it often, but his words showed a kind of quiet regret. He hadn't meant to hurt her. He just couldn't give her what she needed at the time. They were at different places in life. Keaton was ready for love to become a permanent part of her world. Pacino was still caught in the demands of his art, his fame, and his own fears. Their timing never quite lined up. The Bachelor of Hollywood. Al Pacino has been one of Hollywood's most admired actors for decades, and with that fame came a lot of attention, especially when it came to his love life. Over the years, Pacino has had many long and meaningful relationships with well-known women. But one thing has remained constant. He's never been married. For someone who has spent his entire adult life in the public eye, Pacino has managed to avoid the one thing that most people assume comes with love: marriage. Pacino's romantic history is filled with some of the most talented and beautiful women in the entertainment world. In the 1970s, he was linked to actress Tuesday Weld, known for her independent spirit and edgy film roles. That relationship didn't last long, but it was one of the first in a series of serious but non-marital partnerships. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Pacino had a long relationship with Jill Clayburgh, an accomplished actress who starred in several acclaimed films. They lived together for a time and were considered one of Hollywood's most private and thoughtful couples. But once again, there was no wedding. Then came Beverly D'Angelo, the actress best known for the National Lampoon's vacation films. Their relationship in the late 1990s was one of Pacino's most public, especially after they had twins together in 2001. Despite having children and living as a family for a while, they never married. The relationship ended not long after the birth of the twins, but they remained connected as co-parents. In the 2000s and 2010s, Pacino dated Lucila Sola, an Argentine actress more than 30 years his junior. They were together for several years and often seen at events and film premieres. Friends said the relationship was serious, but again, there was no talk of marriage. Through all these relationships, a clear pattern emerges. Pacino tends to stay with women for several years, and many of them are intelligent, artistic, and strong-willed. He has said in interviews that he's drawn to women with a creative spirit and a deep mind. His partners weren't just beautiful, they were thinkers, performers, and people who challenged him. Though he never married, Pacino has become a father 3 times. His first child, Julie Marie, was born in 1989 with acting coach John Tarrant. Pacino was involved in her life from the start and has spoken warmly about being a father. In 2001, he had twins, Anton and Olivia, with Beverly D'Angelo. Pacino took his role as a father seriously, even though he wasn't always in a traditional home. He has said in interviews that parenting changed him. It made him more grounded and gave him a new kind of responsibility. Even though he and D'Angelo broke up, they worked together to raise their children, sharing custody and remaining respectful toward each other. Some believe that Pacino's own childhood played a big role in his views on relationships. He was raised by a single mother and his grandparents after his parents divorced when he was still very young. He never had an example of a long-lasting marriage in his life. That kind of early experience can shape how someone sees love, family, and commitment. For Pacino, marriage may have always felt like something uncertain or even risky. Over the years, Pacino has been asked many times why he never got married. He has always answered honestly, without being defensive. In one interview, he said, "Marriage is a state of mind, not a piece of paper." In another, he explained that he simply never felt the timing was right. "I've had my chances," he said, "but I just didn't feel like it was something I had to do." Some people have suggested that Pacino feared commitment, but that might be too simple. It's clear he was capable of long, loving relationships, but he seemed to value independence, both his and his partner's. He once said that being alone helped him stay in touch with his creativity. Acting was everything to him. It required space, silence, and full emotional energy. Marriage, with all of its responsibilities and expectations, may have felt like something that could take away from that. Others think Pacino may have taken the artist's life to the extreme. He poured himself into his work with an intensity that didn't always leave room for a traditional home life. Acting wasn't just a job, it was his entire world. In that sense, he may have felt more comfortable being unattached, even if it meant losing out on a more permanent romantic bond. Keaton's life after Al Pacino. In her 50s, Diane Keaton made the decision to become a mother. She adopted her daughter Dexter in 1996, and then her son Duke in 2001. For Keaton, motherhood came later in life, but she embraced it fully. She has said that raising her children was one of the best decisions she ever made. She did it on her own, without a partner, and has often talked about how it brought her unexpected joy and purpose. Keaton has always been known for her wit, charm, and self-awareness. In interviews, she often jokes about her love life, calling herself someone who wasn't great at relationships. She tends to downplay things with humor, but if you listen closely, there's a lot of depth and reflection in her words. She has admitted that part of her stayed afraid of commitment too, and that she may have pushed people away over the years. Still, unlike Pacino, she has spoken more openly about what love meant to her and what she lost. When asked about Al Pacino, Keaton has never hidden her feelings. In multiple interviews over the years, she has called him the love of my life. She said she fell for him the moment she met him, and that the feeling stayed with her, even after they broke up. In a 2017 interview, she said, "Al was simply the most charming man. He was funny, brilliant, beautiful. He was it for me." But Keaton has also been honest about how hard the relationship was. She said she tried to change him, wanted him to settle down and commit, but it didn't work. She admitted that when she finally gave him an ultimatum about marriage, it hurt her deeply that he couldn't give her what she wanted. Even so, she doesn't speak with bitterness. Her tone is usually one of acceptance, even if it comes with a hint of sadness. She often shares these thoughts with a smile or a laugh, as if trying to soften the truth. There's regret there, but also peace. Keaton seems to know that some loves aren't meant to last, even if they shape your whole life. Over time, she made peace with being single. She focused on her work, her children, her passions, and her freedom. But the emotional impact of her time with Pacino clearly stayed with her. The Noor Alfallah controversy. In 2023, Al Pacino made headlines for something far outside of his usual world of films and awards. At the age of 83, he became a father again, this time with a woman named Noor Alfallah, who was 54 years younger than him. The news sparked an enormous media reaction. Some people were shocked, some were angry, and others were simply confused. But everyone was talking about it. Noor Alfallah is a film producer and social figure who had already gained some media attention before her relationship with Pacino. Born in 1993, she grew up in Beverly Hills and studied at the University of Southern California before earning a graduate degree from UCLA. Though she has kept much of her personal life private, she's often been spotted in Hollywood circles and has worked in production roles on various film projects. Before dating Pacino, Noor was best known for her relationships with older, wealthy men. She reportedly dated Mick Jagger in 2017 when she was 22 and he was 74. The relationship made headlines for the massive age gap. Much like her later connection with Pacino, she was also linked to billionaire Nicholas Berggruen, and rumors about her romantic life have followed her for years. Her relationships raised questions, but she didn't give many interviews or explain her choices publicly. When her name surfaced alongside Al Pacino's, however, the spotlight on her grew brighter than ever. Reports suggest that Noor and Pacino began seeing each other sometime in 2022. They were first publicly seen together in April of that year, leaving a restaurant in Los Angeles. Sources close to the couple claimed they had been quietly dating for months by then. Despite the huge age gap, they reportedly connected over shared interests in film and culture. Friends said the relationship was not as random as it seemed. Both were part of the same social circles in Los Angeles. Noor, through her work and family ties, had access to Hollywood's elite. Pacino, although private, has often surrounded himself with people from the industry, especially younger creatives. The relationship might have remained mostly private, but everything changed when the news broke in May 2023 that Noor was 8 months pregnant with Pacino's child. The headlines were immediate and explosive. Critics questioned the ethics, the power dynamics, and the implications of someone in their late 80s fathering a child with someone not even 30. Social media exploded. Some people accused Noor of using Pacino for fame or money, calling her a gold digger. Others defended her, saying she was a grown woman who had the right to make her own choices. On the other side, some critics aimed their outrage at Pacino, accusing him of being irresponsible or out of touch. Was she exploiting him? Was he taking advantage of her? These were the types of questions debated across news sites and social platforms. For many people, it wasn't just about a personal relationship. It became a discussion about gender roles, power, and age. In June 2023, Noor gave birth to their son, Roman Pacino. The news once again made international headlines. Photos of Pacino and Noor leaving the hospital, along with updates about the baby, were everywhere. But not long after the baby's birth, legal drama followed. In September 2023, reports surfaced that Noor had filed legal documents in Los Angeles to establish legal custody of the child. According to court filings, she requested full physical custody with reasonable visitation for Pacino. The filings also included a voluntary declaration of parentage signed by Pacino, confirming that he was the biological father. The documents also mentioned discussions around financial support, though specific figures were not disclosed publicly. Some sources claimed that Pacino agreed to a plan to support the child financially, including medical expenses, a trust, and other arrangements for long-term care. Though no one involved made any public accusations, the filings suggested a structured, negotiated agreement behind the scenes. As usual, Pacino stayed mostly silent in public. He did not give interviews or press statements about the relationship or the child. This is consistent with how he has always handled personal matters. Throughout his career, Pacino has avoided discussing his private life in detail, even during high-profile moments. He rarely comments on his relationships, family, or emotional decisions. Still, The court documents gave a glimpse into what was happening privately. His signature on the paternity form showed that he had acknowledged the child and was involved in some way. Sources close to him said that he was happy about the birth, and that he intended to play a role in Roman's life. However, at 83 years old, that role would naturally look different than it might for a younger father. The secret Keaton shared. In 2022, Diane Keaton stood in front of a crowd outside the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood. It was her hand and footprint ceremony, one of the highest honors in the film industry. The moment was emotional, filled with stories from her long career. But among her memories, one stood out. A surprising story about The Godfather and the casting of Al Pacino. While looking back, Keaton told the crowd that Al Pacino, now considered legendary in the role of Michael Corleone, was never the obvious choice. In fact, the studio didn't want him at all. Keaton shared that when casting began for The Godfather, Pacino wasn't what the studio had in mind. The executives at Paramount Pictures were unsure of him. He was still new to Hollywood and didn't have the typical look or presence of a leading man. He was quiet, serious, and didn't have the star power they were looking for. At the time, it was a risk to put someone so unknown in such a big role. Meanwhile, Keaton had already been cast as Kay Adams, Michael's girlfriend. The decision to cast her had come earlier, and she admitted that at the time, she didn't know what the film would become. "I didn't even understand the script," she once said in another interview, laughing at how little she grasped about the story's depth. But back to Pacino, he was almost not in it at all. If the studio had had its way, someone else would have played Michael. Luckily, The Godfather's director, Francis Ford Coppola, had a strong vision. He believed in Pacino from the start. Despite the pressure from the studio, Coppola insisted that Pacino was right for the part. To prove it, he set up a chemistry read, a screen test between Pacino and Keaton. That moment changed everything. According to Keaton, the chemistry between them during the read convinced the studio. Their natural interaction, the emotional tension, and the quiet pull between their characters finally made the decision clear. "So he brought Al Pacino in, and we did it together," she said. And for some reason, that helped them cast him. That reason turned out to be magic. The chemistry wasn't just good, it became one of the most iconic screen pairings in film history. Their dynamic helped shape The Godfather, giving depth to the characters of Michael and Kay. It also planted the seed for their real-life connection, which grew during and after filming. The idea that someone else could have played Michael Corleone might seem strange now, but at the time, several big names were being considered. The studio reportedly looked at Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson, and even Robert Redford for the role. All of them were stars already, and all were very different from Pacino. But none of them would have brought the same quiet intensity, the slow transformation, or the emotional distance that Pacino delivered so perfectly. Keaton reflected on that too, saying, "Can you imagine if you hadn't cast him?" If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story like this. What part of their story surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments.